This whole season seems like it's building towards good things happening for our heroes finally, but I wonder if it's just if the fleece is over my eyes and George R. R. Martin is just going to do it to us again.
The dead are coming.
Game of Thrones, Season 6, Episode 7, The Broken Man. We are quickly approaching the end, folks. When you think about the title, the easy but incorrect answer is Theon Greyjoy. He is absolutely a broken man. And he's on the long bridge of Volantis. That's a very actually an interesting story, how that bridge came to be. You should look it up. But he's with his sister Yara, and she's sampling the finer goods along the bridge. It's quite notorious for this sort of thing. And she's sort of teasing her brother about what he can't have anymore. He's taking it pretty hard. And she gives him that little bit of advice. They're on the way to Marine to meet the Dragon Queen. Can't wait for that. They're bringing her the one thing she needs more than anything else, which is a navy. And the people who know how to run a navy. And there's nobody better than the Ironborn. Say what you want about them, but they know how to run a navy. But she's teasing Theon, and he's just, cowering, as she puts it. And she says, if you're done, if you've given up, slit your wrists and be done with it. But if you're going to stay, I need my brother. I need the Theon that I know. You're still my brother. And he kind of, he's pounding that glass of ale to a little bit of liquid courage. And he just kind of a very shaky nod. And so he is absolutely still in there. I am very, very hopeful for if and when they meet Daenerys. That's going to be two groups of characters I never thought would cross paths, but the way that they're doing it, it makes very, very much sense. Yara and Theon have to flee Pike because Euron is going to kill them. And he's trying to build 1,000 ships on an island with no trees. I don't know if you've seen that meme. That's pretty funny. But the title of The Broken Man refers to none other but Sandor the Hound Clegane. The opening scene, I was convinced they were building Winterfell. And when I saw Ian McShane, I said, I guarantee he's playing Bran the Builder. But I was wrong, because out of nowhere comes a man carrying a log when it takes three other men to carry the same size log. And I'm thinking, is it a giant? Nope. Close. It is the Hound. He somehow survived the wounds that Arya inflicted so long ago before she even left Westeros to come to Braavos. She had that coin in her pocket that Jaqen gave her. And it was great to see the Hound back. I think they did it well. He's been kind of hiding out. They're building a sept in the middle of nowhere. And Ian McShane is such a great actor. He has so much gravitas. His performance was just stellar. And I was disappointed he was only in one season, but he served his purpose. It was to bring the Hound out of retirement and get him back to doing what he does the best, which is, unfortunately, the disease known as violence. When I think his name was Brother Ray says that violence is a disease, and by spreading it to someone else it doesn't help. You have to stop it. Unfortunately, that's not the world we live in, and I don't think violence is a disease. I think it's a means to an end. And the Hound, when he picks up that axe at the end, we know he's back, and it gives hope to those of us who are waiting for the Clegane Bowl, where perhaps when Cersei stands trial, she'll choose the Mountain as her champion, and somehow the High Sparrow will somehow end up choosing the Hound. That would be great to see the two brothers face off in King's Landing once more. When they both cheated death, by the way. Very, very great counterpoint made by Brother Ray, who admits he doesn't know anything. He doesn't have any answers. He's not even sure, is it the old gods? Is it the faith of the Seven? Is it the Lord of Light? He doesn't know. He admits he doesn't know. But he has a message of peace and, community that he's trying to spread. And you contrast that with the High Sparrow, who thinks he knows everything. He has all the answers. He has all the wisdom, and he's been through, what he's been through. And he's come out, wise beyond all measure. And I think he's about to find out how wrong he is. Marjorie is playing the long game with the High Sparrow. And that note that she slips her grandmother with just the rose on it. I thought it was going to be a whole note explaining her plan, but it's just a rose. And that's her way of saying, grandmother, I'm still in here. Don't worry. I have a plan. I know what I'm doing. And I think Tommen is too naive and too, in love and lust with Marjorie to be part of the plan. So I think she is playing everyone. She's absolutely playing the Game of Thrones. And she's the type of person who's just conniving enough and can try on all those different masks well enough to win. So I would definitely put money on her, not Cersei. As the Queen of Thorns points out this week, she has no friends, she has no allies, no one likes her, no one wants her around. And, her brother's been exiled, and her son has basically forsaken her. Yes, she does have the mountain, but he can't win a war for her. And we finally see that clip we've been waiting for since the season 6 trailer. Tell your man to step aside or there will be violence. And Cersei just says, I choose violence. And she's savoring it. The scene between her and the Queen of Thorns was very powerful as well. Some really great acting by Diane Rigg when she's just dressing down Cersei and she's saying the only joy she can take from the situation is the fact that Cersei is utterly lost. And you've got to say, I've made the guess that Cersei is going to lose Jaime and she's going to, in rage and in grief, she's going to light King's Landing on fire with the wildfire and inadvertently kill Tommen. That's a little bit out there of a theory, but I could definitely see it being true. When we look at Bran's visions, some of those are from the future. And we're seeing all the wildfire under King's Landing that's been there since the days of the Mad King. I think that she could use that as her final doomsday device when all is lost and she has nothing left inside her but to spite those who are left in King's Landing. So Tommen has sent his uncle father to Riverrun to break the siege of Riverrun, led by the Blackfish. And I love the scene where the bridge kind of slowly comes down and there's Jaime, and they greet each other with Kingslayer, Blackfish. I just really like that. They both have pretty badass nicknames. But the way that Jaime dresses down House Frey, they were completely bluffing when they say they were going to kill Lord Edmure. Even if they did, it doesn't change anything for the Blackfish. He's not going to give in. And I like how he says, as long as he's alive, the war is not over. I think he means the War of the Five Kings. They have not eliminated him, and they have not eliminated House Tully, and House Tully is not going to give in to House Frey or to the Lannisters, which you've got to respect. There's still some fight out there from the fallout of the Red Wedding. He was one of the few to actually escape it, and he's not going to give up, which is good. I know I said last week that the pain and the angst from the Red Wedding it faded enough that when I saw Walder Frey again, I was almost kind of apathetic about it. But the Blackfish has me charged up again to finally get revenge on these people. And I don't know if the show's tricking me into believing again. This whole season seems like it's building towards good things happening for our heroes finally. But I wonder if it's just the fleece is over my eyes and George R.R. Martin is just going to do it to us again. If at the end of the season, I'm off on a tangent, but if at the end of the season, if Ramsay Bolton has killed Jon Snow and still holds Winterfell, I might be done with the story because it's just not entertaining. But we'll see. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. We'll see. The scene with Jaime when he's trying to sort of portray this gravitas that he has, and he's still feared more or less. But it was great to see him with Bronn again. Finally, Bronn very late to season 6, but it was wonderful to see him again. I'm hoping that there's a scene with him and Brienne when she inevitably shows up next week where they can kind of trade notes on the Kingslayer. But when he says, you should never make a threat that you don't intend to keep. For instance, if I was to threaten to smack you in the face if you said one more thing, it was great. But the Blackfish is not buying it. The Kingslayer was a disappointment to him. You can tell that he's more or less a shell of a man. He's just Cersei's puppet. And the Blackfish is picking up on that. I did enjoy that the Blackfish reminded Jaime of the terms of his release when Catelyn Stark let him go, that he was going to do what he could to get Arya and Sansa back home again. And he says, you don't have them. Well, then would you like to resume your captivity? It's a reminder of how far Jaime has come from that arrogant SOB he was in seasons 1 and 2, and really the journey. He's had more character development than anyone else on the show. And he's gone from a character that I just absolutely despise to one that he's turned into an underdog is what he's done. He's gone from the top of the food chain to an underdog, and it's really good writing that's brought him to this point. So speaking of the North, let's turn our attention there for a moment. Sansa, Jon, and Davos on sort of a goodwill tour of the North. Although unfortunately it is actually a Bolton and a Snow, as pointed out by Lord Glover. And the mistakes that Robb made are still echoing through the North. And, we know the North remembers, but unfortunately it remembers everything. And this call to the Stark banner that Sansa's invoking, it just does not have the weight it had when Ned was alive. Unfortunately, Robb made a lot of mistakes, and he's being called out on it right now. I mean, Jon has got to try to clean up Robb's mess, and Sansa's doing her best to do it. To the point that, when they got the 62 men, I guess 50, by the way, from House Mormont, that there's a little bit of desperation there. That's not enough. There's just not enough manpower that they can summon. So Sansa is writing that letter, and some people think it's just to another Northern house, but they've built it up with enough suspense that it's obviously to Littlefinger. And she's going to ask him to come with the Knights of the Vale to help retake Winterfell. And you've got to think anything that Littlefinger does is in his best interest. So I think that when he arrives inevitably in Winterfell, the true extent of his game and his machinations will become apparent. To me, though, Jon just seems tired and kind of slow. He seems kind of apathetic. He doesn't have much pep in his step. It's too bad, too, because he really is he's our hero. He's our rallying cry, but it's Sansa who's really showing the most strength right now. But Jon just seems tired, and I don't envy him and Davos the task of keeping these wildlings in check for any length of time. I mean, it makes sense that Jon wants to move from that camp quickly. And one thing that doesn't make sense to me is that, Stannis lost his whole army because of snow. He had to burn Shireen to melt some snow so he could even march south, but it seems like Jon's having no problem. Was that a quick storm? Why couldn't they shelter in Castle Black for a bit longer? It just seems very, very false to me, the way that Stannis went out. I'm still a little bit bitter. And if the Hound can be alive, maybe Stannis is still alive. But I do severely doubt it. Brienne is too honorable to lie about that, unfortunately. But you've got to really think, what happened to all that snow when Theon and Sansa jumped off the rampart there? It seemed like it was piled halfway up the castle. But now here's Jon, even much farther north than that, and he's not really running into any opposition. He's able to freely travel from one end of the north to the other, meeting all these houses, even going all the way to Bear Island without any trouble. So you've got to figure what was Stannis' problem. One other little wrinkle that's a little bit confusing to me is that Sansa sends Brienne to Riverrun to try to get House Tully to come north to help them, but they have their own problems. So I really can't imagine what Brienne is going to do when she gets there. She's going to see Jaime again for the first time in a while. But I would very excited to see what part she plays, because the Blackfish isn't going to just give up Riverrun and go help Sansa. But maybe if they can somehow beat back the Lannisters and wipe out House Frey, I just don't see how they can do it. So I think that Brienne has been sent on a fool's errand, and I'm not sure that she's going to factor in much to what happens in the north. She's going to get too wrapped up in the Riverlands to have any impact up north, which is too bad, because she would be an excellent combatant to fight Ramsay. So finally, let's go to the free city of Braavos, and let's check in on Arya. She's throwing around money like a Lannister. Booking a ship, demanding a cabin, saying that they're going to leave a day early, and apparently she has the silver to do that. I'm not sure how she got that much silver, though, but her plan is unfortunately thwarted by the evil queen with a poison apple. Come here, dearie. And I said to my dad immediately, I said, oh, there's the waif. And she starts just stabbing her again and again in the stomach, and Arya is able to get out of it and roll over the side into the river, and the waif thinks she got her. But I have a theory. And I'll admit I got part of this from a forum I was reading last night, but it really makes sense. Are you sitting down for this? The waif is Arya. She's having an inner struggle against her subconscious. She's trying to kill, in a very meta way, the last remnants of Arya Stark. This part of her mind's fighting to try and reclaim and retain its identity. And she has to kill off her old self completely. And I think what we see is, how when Arya was being hit by the sticks over and over, and they were fighting in the street, no one seemed to take notice. It's kind of like a Tyler Durden Fight Club situation, perhaps. And when she's been stabbed and she's walking through the street bleeding, people are staring at her, but nobody seems very concerned, and it's very strange to me. I wonder how much of this is happening inside her head, and how much of this is really happening. Is it possible that Arya falls down and dies, and then the waif reports back to Jaqen, pulls off the mask, and reveals that she was Arya the whole time? It certainly would be an interesting twist. Otherwise, I don't see how they resolve this story without Arya just killing Jaqen and the waif before going back to Westeros. And if she did that, what was the point of this whole storyline? So next week, we have no one And I think it's finally time that we put an end to the debate, is Arya Stark no one, or is she Arya Stark? I think we will get answers to that, and we are setting the table for quite an explosive finale. It's something that has been bothering me a little bit lately is, the next 2 seasons, there's only going to be 2 more seasons, and they're supposedly going to be truncated, is what I'm hearing. So there's, a finite amount of Game of Thrones left. And I know you can always go back and read the books, and there's 100, 200% more, information and characters in there. But like I said before, this must be frustrating for book people because, when you look at Benjen Stark is Cold Hands, and of course, the Return of the Hound and what happened to Hodor, they're really throwing a lot of reveals at us back to back. And I think by the end of this season, if you were a book reader who did not want to touch the TV show, it'd probably be pretty frustrating right now if you're anywhere near social media to avoid any kind of spoilers. And I know that the books and the TV show are going to diverge, and I know certain things can't be the same way on both, but it doesn't mean it's any less frustrating. So join me next week for No One, and we're going to see what happens to Arya, and I'll bet she does pull a Tyler Durden on us. Thanks again for watching. This show has hurt me again and again.